Commander Zilix watched the debriefing with growing understanding. These humans were unlike any species he had encountered before. Their thinking was not just different, it was revolutionary. By the evening, Zilix had made a decision that would change galactic military strategy forever. He prepared a recommendation to the Galactic Security Council that would shock the established military leadership. His report was direct and powerful. The humans were not just another species to be studied. They were a fundamental shift in strategic thinking. Their approach to conflict, survival, and resource management was so unique that it could reshape entire military doctrines. The warning was clear. These Deathworld inhabitants fought differently. They fought differently. And if they ever chose to fight against the galactic community rather than with it, the consequences would be unimaginable. The humans had done more than win a simulation. They had revealed a completely new way of understanding conflict, survival, and strategic thinking. Their approach came from generations of living on a planet that constantly challenged their existence. As the debriefing concluded, the Academy staff realized they were witnessing something historic. These humans were not just participants in the galactic community. They were about to become its most unpredictable and innovative players. The simulation had become more than a test. It was a window into a different way of thinking, a perspective shaped by survival, adaptability, and a willingness to take risks that others would never consider. Shunho, Hyunbin, and Jiu represented more than just a successful team. They were ambassadors of a different approach to existence, one where boldness, quick thinking, and calculated risk were not just strategies, but a way of life. Commander Zilix's recommendation would echo through the corridors of galactic leadership. The humans had arrived, and nothing would be the same again. Their Deathworld perspective was about to change everything. In that moment, the future looked different, uncertain, exciting, and completely transformed by a group of young humans who understood something fundamental about survival that no other species had ever fully grasped. The simulation was over, but the real revolution was just beginning. Their approach was like a surgeon's knife, swift, precise, and devastating. They had studied their enemies so deeply that they could predict reactions before they happened. Each movement was a calculated risk, designed to create maximum impact with minimum waste. The senior instructors watched in stunned silence. What typically would have been a decade-long conflict was being resolved in mere months of simulation time. The humans were burning through resources, but with a purpose that went beyond traditional military thinking. Their strategy wasn't about destruction. It was about ending the conflict quickly and efficiently. They understood something fundamental. Prolonged wars benefit nobody. Every move was designed to create a clear, decisive outcome. When the simulation clock finally hit 60 minutes, the entire room held its breath. The system's announcement was unlike anything anyone had ever heard. Simulation complete. Conflict resolved. Duration: 11.3 standard months. The silence that followed was deafening. A conflict that would normally stretch across years had been compressed into less than a year of simulation time, played out in just one real-time hour. The human team hadn't just won a simulation. They had demonstrated a radical new approach to conflict resolution. Their method combined deep psychological understanding, rapid decision-making, and a willingness to take calculated risks. Zilix smiled. He recognized this wasn't just a military victory. It was a showcase of human adaptability, intelligence, and their unique ability to see beyond traditional boundaries. The other species in the room looked at the humans with a new respect. They had just witnessed something that challenged everything they thought they knew about strategic thinking. The humans had shown that sometimes the fastest path to peace is through swift, surgical action. As discussions began to buzz around the room, one thing became clear. The humans had changed the game forever. Their approach to conflict was not just different, it was revolutionary. The simulation had become more than a test. It was a statement about human potential, about their capacity to understand complex systems and navigate them with unprecedented speed and precision. The young human team stood quietly, processing their achievement. They hadn't just won a simulation. They had proven that sometimes the most powerful strategy is one that breaks all the existing rules. In that moment, the Academy understood something profound. The humans were not just participants in this galactic community. They were about to become its most unpredictable and innovative players. The 60-minute miracle was more than a military success. It was a glimpse into a future where human creativity and strategic thinking would reshape everything they knew about conflict, cooperation, and survival. In the aftermath of their remarkable simulation victory, the human team faced intense questioning from Academy instructors. The room was filled with a mix of curiosity, confusion, and barely hidden respect. Shunho, the team's leader, spoke with a calm that surprised everyone. His words carried the weight of generations shaped by survival. "Where we come from," he explained, "efficiency isn't a choice. It's how we stay alive." The instructors struggled to understand. They saw risks where the humans saw opportunities. Some of the team's moves had less than a 30% chance of success. What seemed like madness to others was simply practical thinking to the humans. Hyundai, the youngest team member, offered a simple explanation that captured their entire approach. "Fortune favors the bold," he said with a smile that hinted at deeper wisdom. To the humans, appearing unpredictable was itself a strategic advantage. Jihu, their logistics expert, added another crucial insight. On Earth, a harsh world that constantly challenged its inhabitants, waiting for perfect conditions meant certain death. They had learned to act quickly, decisively, with whatever information was available. As the simulation progressed, the instructors watched in stunned silence. The humans weren't just fighting. They were hunting. Their movements mimicked predators in nature, using psychological manipulation that cut deeper than any weapon. Minji, the tactical lead, stood at the center of this remarkable strategy. She understood something fundamental about survival. That fear was a weapon more powerful than any technology. Drawing from humanity's ancient survival mechanisms, she guided her team to exploit the psychological vulnerabilities of their simulated enemies. They moved like a pack of wolves, creating intricate traps that played on biological instincts. When they targeted enemy supply lines, they didn't just disrupt logistics. They created a sense of mounting dread. Each strategic move was calculated to trigger stress responses, making the opponent feel hunted rather than simply challenged. The simulation creators had designed an advanced scenario meant to test technological superiority. Instead, they witnessed something far more profound: humans using their deepest evolutionary adaptations as a strategic advantage. The team wasn't just fighting. They were telling a story of survival through movement, timing, and psychological pressure. Their tactics resembled marine predators like dolphins, who use complex hunting techniques. They would create invisible boundaries, slowly narrowing the enemy's options, making them feel increasingly trapped. Each maneuver was a psychological chess move, designed to break not just formations, but spirit. By the 6th month, they had achieved what seemed impossible. The central command of one simulation faction completely collapsed, not through brute force, but through a masterful understanding of fear and stress. They had turned biological responses into a weapon more precise than any missile. The instructors exchanged looks of amazement. These humans weren't just soldiers or strategists. They were walking embodiments of millions of years of survival instinct. Their approach demonstrated that technology could be outsmarted, but primal intelligence was timeless. Minji explained her approach simply: understand your opponent's deepest fears, and you can control their entire strategy. She had transformed an academic exercise into a demonstration of human adaptability, showing that survival isn't just about strength, but about understanding the invisible currents of psychological warfare. The simulation became more than a test. It was a revelation about human potential, about how deeply ingrained survival mechanisms could be transformed into sophisticated strategic thinking. The humans had proven that their greatest weapon wasn't technology, but their capacity to understand, adapt, and strategically manipulate fundamental biological responses. As the final stages of the simulation unfolded, it was clear that something remarkable had happened. The human team had not just won a battle, they had rewritten the understanding of strategic engagement, proving that sometimes the most advanced strategy is the one closest to our most fundamental nature. Their victory wasn't just about defeating an opponent. It was about demonstrating the incredible complexity of human intelligence, an intelligence shaped by millions of years of survival, adaptation, and an intimate understanding of fear itself. The room was silent, filled with a mix of respect and wonder. These humans had shown that true strategic brilliance comes from understanding not just external systems, but the deep primal mechanisms that drive living beings. They had turned an academic simulation into a profound lesson about the power of psychological insight. In a packed academy hall, something extraordinary was about to unfold. What started as a routine military simulation had transformed into a breathtaking display of human strategic brilliance. The room buzzed with tension as the humans prepared their final move. Observers from different species watched with a mix of curiosity and disbelief. Where traditional strategies called for slow, careful movements, these humans were about to challenge everything everyone knew about warfare. Xylix, a seasoned instructor, understood what was happening. While others saw recklessness, he saw calculated precision. The human team wasn't just fighting. They were rewriting the rules of engagement. As the simulation clock ticked closer to the 60-minute mark, the humans launched a complex attack that seemed almost impossible. 7 different strategic points were targeted simultaneously, each strike carefully timed to exploit the psychological weaknesses of their opponents. In the simulation's first month, the humans appeared to be losing badly. They had surrendered valuable territories and resources. Their fleet was scattered and seemingly disorganized. The Rigelian forces advanced confidently, while the Arcturans seized abandoned mining stations. But Xylix noticed something the others missed. "They're not playing to not lose," he said quietly to Prill. "They're playing to win decisively." "Sir?" Prill asked, confused. "Traditional galactic warfare is about position and attrition, minimizing losses while maximizing gains. It's defensive thinking," Xylix explained. "These humans are setting a trap." Inside the simulation, Junho gave the command they had been waiting for. "All battle groups, execute Operation Thunderstrike on my mark. Now." Across the simulated galaxy, 17 human battle groups suddenly powered up from their hiding places. Ships that had been drifting dead in asteroid fields roared to life. Vessels hidden in radiation clouds emerged with weapons hot. Squadrons that had been running silent in gas giant orbits accelerated at rates that would crush most alien crews against their bulkheads. "They're attacking from everywhere at once," gasped Solara. "How is this possible?" On the main screen, a Rigelian supply convoy was ambushed by ships that seemed to appear from nowhere. In another sector, human destroyers used the gravity well of a gas giant to slingshot themselves at an Arcturan space station, arriving before the defenders could raise shields. "Their maneuvers are insane," one instructor said. "Those gravity slingshots require timing accurate to milliseconds. One mistake, and their ships would be torn apart. And the G-forces would kill any normal crew," added another. "But humans can withstand forces that would crush us," Commander Xylix finished. "They evolved on a high-gravity world. What would kill us merely makes them uncomfortable." The simulation time accelerated, showing a week of battles. The human tactics were unlike anything in the Academy's textbooks. They used asteroid fields not just for cover, but as weapons, detonating charges that sent rock fragments into enemy formations. They flew through the coronas of stars, using the radiation to mask their signatures. They shut down their ships to drift with minimal power, appearing as space debris until they were within striking distance. "This isn't in any manual," Solara said, her voice a mixture of horror and admiration. "No," agreed Dorn. "It's like they're making it up as they go." By the end of the simulated month, the humans hadn't just gained back their lost territory. They had pushed both the Rigelians and Arcturans into defensive positions. The supposedly suicidal tactics had achieved what conventional approaches never could. In the simulation chamber, the human team continued their unconventional strategy. Chuno coordinated the overall plan, while Taewoo devised weapons approaches that exploited physics in ways the Academy had never considered. Minji predicted enemy movements with uncanny accuracy. Hunbin calculated impossible trajectories, and Jiu monitored enemy communications for signs of confusion and fear. "They're panicking," Jiu reported with satisfaction, listening to intercepted Arcturan transmissions. "Their command structure is breaking down." Commander Zilix stood quietly at the back of the observation deck, watching these strange creatures from a death planet rewrite centuries of military doctrine in mere hours. His long life had taught him to recognize pivotal moments in history, and he knew he was witnessing one now. "They don't think like us," he murmured, more to himself than to Prill. "They don't fight like us." "Is that good or bad, sir?" Prill asked nervously. Zilix didn't answer immediately. He watched as a human battle group executed a maneuver that sent 3 ships skimming through a star's photosphere, a move that would have boiled any other species alive, but merely required the humans to use their cooling systems at maximum. "Both," he finally said. "It is both." In the depths of a high-stakes military simulation, something extraordinary was unfolding. The human participants were revealing a strategy that went far beyond traditional tactical thinking. Their approach was primal, instinctive, and completely unexpected. By the end of the first hour, representing 3 months of simulated time, the human team had achieved what no previous team had managed in years. They had forced both the Rigelians and Arcturans to change their battle plans completely. Commander Zilix couldn't hide his amazement. "They're not trying to win by conventional means," he realized. "They're changing the nature of the conflict itself." The human team worked with remarkable coordination. Shunho gave clear, quick orders. Minji predicted enemy movements with uncanny accuracy. Taewoo found weaknesses in supposedly impenetrable defenses. Hyunbin calculated jump trajectories that seemed impossible. Jiu crafted messages that confused and divided enemy commanders. "They're using psychological warfare," noted a senior instructor. "They understand how different species think under stress." "Of course they do," replied Commander Zilix. "Their world taught them that understanding predator and prey behaviors means survival." As the simulation approached the 1-hour mark, the audience had grown from a few dozen skeptical observers to nearly the entire Academy. The humans had accelerated the pace of the war to unprecedented levels. They forced decisive battles instead of the careful, positional warfare that characterized typical galactic conflicts. In the final minutes, they executed a complex series of simultaneous attacks on 7 key systems. The maneuvers were timed perfectly to exploit the predictable responses of their opponents. They had studied both the Rigelians and Arcturans enough to anticipate exactly how they would react. When the simulation clock hit exactly 60 minutes, the system announced, "Simulation complete. Conflict resolved. Duration, 11.3 standard months." The room fell completely silent. A decade-long war, resolved in less than a year of simulation time, played out in just 1 hour of real time. As the pods opened and the 5 humans emerged, they looked tired but satisfied. They stood straight and proud before Commander Zilix, waiting for his assessment. The old commander looked at them with new eyes, not as primitive curiosities, but as something perhaps more dangerous and valuable than anyone had realized. "It seems," he said slowly, "that we have much to learn from Deathworlders after all." The news of the human cadets' unusual approach spread through the Academy like wildfire. By the next morning, the observation deck was packed with students and instructors from every species in the Concordat. They floated, perched, and stood in their environmental suits, all eyes fixed on the simulation screens. Zilara, a blue-skinned Mentalian known for her perfect strategic record, couldn't believe what she was seeing. The humans had abandoned the Proxima system with its rich deuterium deposits to the Rigelians without firing a single shot. This goes against every principle of resource warfare, she whispered to her classmate Dorn. No fleet can fight without securing fuel sources first. Commander Zilix stood at the back of the room, his ancient reptilian eyes narrowed in concentration. His assistant, a nervous Quarian named Prill, kept updating him on the tactical situation. The humans have split their fleet into 17 smaller battle groups, Prill reported. Standard doctrine recommends no more than 5 groups for cohesive command. Yes, Zilix said quietly. Very interesting. Inside the simulation chamber, the 5 human cadets worked with focused intensity. Their holographic display showed the 12 star systems as a 3-dimensional map, with hundreds of ships represented as glowing dots. Teu, move Battle Group Sigma behind the Antares asteroid belt, Juno ordered. Full power down except for life support. Tegu nodded, his fingers flying across the control panel. They'll think we've retreated. Minji, how are the Arcturans responding to our withdrawal from Sector 4? Juno asked. Minji studied her tactical display. Just as predicted. They're moving their dreadnought fleet to secure it. They think we're weak. Jiu looked up from her communication station. I've analyzed their command transmissions. Their admiral is confident. He's telling his captains this will be an easy victory. Hyunbin, the youngest, smiled. Perfect. They'll never expect us to attack from inside the radiation belt. Back on the observation deck, the alien students watched in growing confusion as the human tactics continued to defy convention. The humans weren't just breaking the rules. They were playing an entirely different game. They're shutting down their ships completely in the Orion Nebula, gasped an instructor. Even life support is minimal. That's suicide, another replied. The radiation levels there would kill most species. Not humans, Commander Zilix interjected. Their cellular repair mechanisms evolved on a radiation-soaked planet. They can endure levels that would kill any of us. The alien students whispered as 5 humans entered the simulation chamber. These humans from Earth were different from everyone else at the Galactic Concordat Military Academy. Earth was known as a Deathworld, a planet with crushing gravity, wild weather, and many dangerous animals. Most aliens couldn't even visit Earth without special equipment. Look at their thick bones and dense muscles, muttered a tall, willowy Centurion student. Primitive brutes. I heard they still have predator instincts, another whispered. Their ancestors used to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. The humans, Shunho, Taewoo, Minji, Hyunbin, and Jiu, ignored the stares and comments. They had gotten used to being outsiders during their first year at the academy. They were the first humans ever accepted to the prestigious school that trained military leaders for the entire galactic community. Commander Zilix watched from a raised platform. His scaled skin shimmered under the lights as he tapped commands into the control panel. The old veteran had designed the most challenging test in the Academy's history, a simulation of the Regelian-Arcturan War, a devastating conflict that had destroyed worlds and killed billions before ending in a fragile peace treaty. This simulation is meant to humble you, Zilix announced to the human team. No team has ever resolved the conflict in less than 7 simulated years. Most fail entirely. Chunho, the team leader, stepped forward with a polite bow. We understand, Commander. We're grateful for the opportunity. Several alien students laughed. They knew that assignment to the war simulation was a punishment, not an opportunity. Previous teams had spent weeks inside the simulator, emerging exhausted and defeated. Begin the test, Zilix commanded. The 5 humans entered the simulation pods. The transparent covers closed over them as their minds linked to the virtual battlefield. On the large screens above, observers could watch what the team was seeing. A map of 12 star systems with hundreds of planets, moons, and space stations. They won't last 2 hours, said an instructor. Humans lack the mental capacity for multi-dimensional strategy. Inside the simulation, the human team found themselves in command of the coalition forces, an alliance of 6 species caught between the powerful Regellian Empire and the technologically advanced Arcturan hierarchy. Their mission was simple but nearly impossible: end the war with minimal casualties on all sides. "Everyone thinks we'll fail," Junho told his team as they gathered around the holographic display. "They think our world made us strong but stupid." Minji, the tactical expert, smiled. "Then they don't understand Earth's history at all. We didn't survive our world by being mindless brutes. We survived by adapting," Teu added. He was their weapons specialist, quiet but brilliant, and by thinking differently than our enemies. Hyunbin, the youngest team member, studied the galaxy map. "The Regellians control these mining colonies. The Arcturans have their manufacturing centers here. Both sides are fighting over these trade routes." Jiu, their communications expert, noticed something the others had missed. "Look at these cultural datasets. Both sides have strong taboos about certain kinds of warfare. They're fighting according to rules that don't actually exist in their treaties." The team huddled together, talking quickly and intensely. Occasionally they argued, but never for long. To the observers, it looked chaotic and undisciplined. "What are they doing?" asked a confused alien student. "They're wasting precious time talking when they should be deploying fleets." Commander Zilix said nothing, but his eyes narrowed with interest. After 30 minutes, the humans finally began issuing commands. What happened next shocked everyone watching. Instead of following standard military doctrine, the humans split their forces into dozens of small groups. Some ships were sent to seemingly worthless positions. Others appeared to retreat from valuable territories. "They're making basic mistakes," said an instructor. "This will be over quickly." But as the simulation progressed, a pattern began to emerge. The human strategy wasn't random. It was unlike anything the Academy had ever seen. They used asteroid belts to hide their ships. They shut down engines and power systems to drift silently through enemy territory. They used the gravity of gas giants to slingshot their vessels at speeds that would kill most alien crews. They set traps using the physics of space in ways that veteran commanders found both brilliant and disturbing. "They're fighting like predators," whispered one observer, "like their ancient ancestors hunting on the plains of Earth."